flow, you wouldn't be conceding to flow because, like, even in this example, like, there are future experiences, but there's already, like, someone who's had the experiences to which would constitute a personal identity.
And what do past experiences matter?
Because they constitute, they constitute memories, experiences, a personal identity, things that would make us people either in a normative or metaphysical sense.
Okay, why would that matter?
I mean, it's kind of just going back to why would personhood matter, right? Like, that's essentially what you're asking me.
And you're saying it's in virtue of the definition, so it's definitionally true that memories, experiences that build up throughout your life make you valuable. But it just seems a little bit unfair to say that, well, in one case...
Yeah, I mean, like, because in the case you're giving me, and I'll give two different cases. The first in which someone goes under anesthesia, they have no awareness, memories, consciousness for like a brief period of time, and then they regain all of those things. And then the second case, it kind of just seems like all of the details would be the same, except you would be taking the brain out and then putting it back in. But it seems like, aside from that, like, descriptive difference, it seems like the two scenarios would be identical.
Yeah, so, well, the big difference is, in your view, there's a stipulation that a brain would have to exist, right? For personhood.
A brain would have to exist for personhood?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the brain still exists. It's just temporarily taken out of the head. So it would be the same as if someone was temporarily asleep. Like, it would just be a temporary lack of awareness, right? In either case.
No, because in the case of a comatose patient or somebody who's asleep, there's still psychological states. If I take the brain out of somebody...
Wait, let's say someone's under anesthesia, then there is no mental life or psychological states.
That's... What? Wait, so if there's no psychological states when I'm comatose or asleep...
Or, I guess, what do you mean by psychological states?
I mean, sentience, you would probably say technically some forms of higher rationale. I'm not really sure how you would classify that. I would just say that it's just experience. Just an experience.
Yeah. So,
or not.
Right. So in either case, it seems like this would just be someone who's temporarily not aware or not conscious. So, like, what would be the difference between the case you gave and the case of someone who's under anesthesia?
Because the person who's under anesthesia has psychological continuity. That's in virtue of your view. And the person who has psychological continuity, like if they're asleep, they can have dreams, they can have internal thoughts that they don't even know about.
Well, you can have psychological continuity even if you're under anesthesia. Like, psychological continuity doesn't imply that you have to be having, like, a subjective experience at all points of time.
Say that last part one more time?
Like, psychological continuity doesn't imply that you'll be, like, having, like, an awareness or an experience at all times. Otherwise, like, people under anesthesia would not be persons. Well, that would be absurd.
So, okay, it doesn't have to... The experiences don't have to occur at all times. So why wouldn't you apply the same moral value for a non-sentient fetus if you just stipulated that the experiences don't need to occur at all points in time?
Well, the fetus is not sentient. So there is no, like, it doesn't have that necessary condition of personhood.
Neither is the person whose brain was removed. In fact, you can make an argument neither was the person who's in a coma. Yet we still value these people.
Yes, but we value them in virtue of the fact that they have these experiences which constituted a personal identity.
Prepare for the next one.
Okay, what's a personal identity? Okay, so if I don't have a personal identity right now and morally valuable?
Watch the objectives. Set up security. Hostile UAV in the area.
Okay, it seems like a sufficient condition. Let's go.
Hostile bomb drone
If
is
it's not a
active.
sufficient condition. Wait, so it's a necessary condition for moral value, correct? So if I don't have a sense of myself, I'm not a person. Well, I said sentience is a necessary condition for a person. I said personal identity. So personal identity is sufficient or necessary condition? To what, personality? Just to me. Like, if I don't have personal identity, which is by your semantics a sense of self, if I don't have a sense of self, I wouldn't be morally valuable anymore. It's a necessary condition.
I mean, like, in what scenario?
1 minute remaining.
Like, in what scenario would someone be sentient and not have a personal identity?
I could just be awake and not know that I exist. Like, there's the mirror to this. I think you can form animals where they're aware, but they don't know they exist. And they look in the mirror like, oh, I exist. Before that, they don't necessarily understand. So, I think personal identity,
Switching sides.
clear, is necessary for sentience.
Search and destroy.
No, sentience isn't necessary for a person.
Plant the charges and demolish the
Sentience.
objective.
So if I don't have a sense of self, I'm not sentient.
If you don't have sentience, you don't have a sense of self, because there's no sense of personal identity. I'm just clarifying. It's not personal identity. You're not sentient. It's the other way around. If you're not sentient, by virtue of that, you don't have a personal identity.
Okay, but like, again, the mirror test, like, a monkey can exist and not know that they exist, yet they're awake.
Round secure. On to the next.
So why would you give that to humans? If they're awake and aware that they know that they exist, why would you give it to humans and not monkeys?
For the most part, we are aware that we
Search and
exist.
destroy.
I think what separates us from animals is the fact
Place the
that
charge. Detonate the target. Friendly UAV online. Secure the device.
in order to have rational experiences or like a rational mind, it's a sentient. So I think it's absurd to say that this is a person, this doesn't have this.
So, if it's the case, again, just going back to my definition, going back to my point, if I don't have a rational experience, I don't have any recognition of anything currently happening, I especially don't have a thing to facilitate the sentience, but yet you're still saying I'm valuable because the psychological continuity will continue when the brain goes back in. That would just say that I don't see how that would be different from a non-sentient fetus. And then you're saying, well, because there's past experiences. And then you say, and then I ask, well, why do past experiences matter? And then you say that matters because, well, it would just be what makes a personhood, and they would be valuable by definition, which just goes in a circle. Like, it doesn't tell me anything.
Wait, how does it go in a circle?
Because you're saying it's true by definition. I'm asking you, why would I accept that definition? Why would I accept that past sentience would make something valuable? Why would I accept?
It said that past sentience is required in order to have a personal identity.
Alright.
And personal identity matters because if you
Alright, time. I could add like a few more. I can add you to address this last point because then we'll have to end.
Yeah. So, look, I guess I'll end with this. Like, if it's the case that somebody doesn't have a sense of self, we can presuppose they have past sentience. We can presuppose that they had this whole life, and then they wake up and they no longer have a sense that they exist. Yet we can stipulate the other variables that are presupposed in existence, or presupposed in sentience. If they don't have this sense of self, are they valuable?
Yeah. I would say that the only necessary condition for personhood is sentience.
Alright, I'm gonna end it. I'm gonna give 5 minute. Good job, guys. Very calm, civil debates. Give each of you 5 minutes for closing, then we'll have a Q&A. So, 3, 2, 1, go for your closing, Wolfgang.
Yeah, so, well, first off, before I say anything, I'd like to, once again, thank BT3 for the cordial debate. It was awesome. I appreciate you engaging. To go into the critique, I think I laid out my conditions for flow pretty well. I laid out how flow is going to necessitate null value, the capacity, and all that. I think my argument was fine. BT3 did give some pretty decent contentions, and I think I answered them well in regards to, I actually kind of forgot what we were talking about earlier in regards to my contention, but he gave good contentions to me. I think I responded to them well. When I responded to him, I think he grounded that sentient or personhood was valuable by virtue of the definition. When I kind of poked further, with the reductio about the brain and it being removed for 5 minutes, I guess I didn't necessarily get a clear answer because the psychological continuity would technically not exist anymore in those 5 minutes, which, seemed like a contradiction. And then toward the end, there seemed to be some talk about rational experiences, which seems like a bit of ad hoc, and I don't necessarily understand why that would entail value either. But yeah, overall, I really appreciated the conversation, and I'll concede my time.
Alright, nice. Now give BT3 his time to speak. In 3, 2, 1, go.
So yeah, I think overall it was a pretty good debate. Just to kind of summarize what happened from my perspective to the audience, I gave Wolfgang an instance in Wolfgang started out by saying that any definition of future experiences is immoral. I gave him a case in which there's a terminally ill hermit and he doesn't want to suffer. Wolfgang said that it would be permissible to take his life. So
1 minute remaining.
I feel like that in of itself is kind of in session, because he's saying on the one hand that it's not permissible to deprive people of future experiences, but then in this case it would be okay. And the reason he said it would be okay is because the hermit gave the doctor consent to do so. So I simply gave him another instance in which I came up to him. I gave him consent to take my life and said that it would be wrong, but couldn't really explain the difference between the two scenarios. Really only pointed to what would be the descriptive differences in either scenario. He wasn't really able to answer that from my perspective. Carrying on the sperm hypothetical, that the reason the sperm would be different than the embryo is because there's a difference in the nature of beings, so I outlined why that wouldn't really matter in the counterfactual sense, the way he's presenting it. And I feel like he wasn't really able to give a clear distinction as to why one entity would be flow and why one would not. He then brought up that he was an animalist, which is, on the one hand, an out-of-box initial position, and on the other hand, the strict animal thesis I had him sign off for, and then gave him like an example of the conjoined twins. He denied that, like, conjoined twins, that he denied that this would be one body, which I'm sure everyone on this panel or everyone watching would recognize that if there's conjoined twins, there's just one body, but they share different body parts. That's just what a conjoined twin is. It's not two bodies, it's one. As it pertains to his critique of my stance, it seems as though he was trying to argue from the perspective of where I would say something like, in order to be a person, you have to be presently actualizing a conscious or sentient experience, but that wasn't anything that what I stipulated. And so I feel like a lot of the conversation, like him and I, was him kind of asking questions that I had already addressed and not really able to find holes in the argument. He also said that the rational, the aspect of rationality, was an ad hoc. It was something that I specifically stated in my opening statement, saying that in order to be rational, you have to be sentient. Yeah, I mean, just to close things up, I think that it was a really great conversation. I want to thank everyone for coming out to watch it once again, and I want to thank Wolfgang for participating. It was a lot of fun. So with that, I'll concede my time.
Nice. All right.
God bless.
All right. Good job, guys. So what we're going to do next is we're going to have the judges speak, and then we'll have a Q&A. So the first judge will be ladies first. Will be Misty going first.
1 minute remaining.
I wrote some notes down. Well, when he asked you why being robbed of life is wrong, I felt like you begged the question because you basically said, future robbing somebody of future experience is wrong. When he asked you why is separational harm wrong, you gave a descriptive, not a prescriptive.
Enemy
BT,
planted at Alpha.
I felt like you asserted personhood. Your definition of personhood begged the question. When you talk about generic identities, this would also apply to the embryo. Also felt like you gave
Round is lost. Focus on the
the
next one.
hypothetical between the
Cancel my scratch that.
analogous because you were talking about you suffering from job loss, which would be a little subjective. What you meant was, suffering from
Keep the enemy off the objective.
physical lack of well-being, which is objective. Oh, I can get into the rest later, but that's all I have to say.
All right, we'll go Chase next.
Okay, as Misty did, I also wrote down notes. I do have a lot of notes that I did. The first two are just blunders that I really needed to address. First, when Wolfgang called us the judges mods, we're not mods, we're judges, so that was the first blunder. And the second blunder was from BT3, mispronouncing Marquis and saying that wasn't Marquis. That was another blunder that I had to also bring up.
Final minute.
So that's the main two ones that I needed to be mentioned. And then we go to, I sort of broke it down to when Wolfgang took affirmative and then when BT3 took the affirmative. So as Misty did state, about the begging the question by assuming, because there's obviously other harm theoretics when it comes to things like, there's a frustration of interest, there's
30 seconds remain.
a plethora of different things. So when you assert a view like, well, my harm theoretic is depriving an entity of a view to
Enemy
like
bomb
Alex.
at Alpha.
That's the harm theoretic, sure, but that's what's in question. Why should we accept this view over any other harm theoretic? Why is this view? And the blunder that BT3 did with that is allowing Wolfgang to beg the question and not pressing him on that and just not asserting that. And then also the thing that I wanted to Marquez. Yeah, that's what he said. Marquez, not Marquis. But and then Wolfgang, at least I heard, because I didn't remember, but I did get clarification. He did talk about either a baseline
All operatives, bomb defused. Round secure. On to the next.
Breakfast down BT3 was pressing him on the case that you add things like base value of deprivation is wrong. So in those cases, like,
Switching sides.
case, there could be overriding considerations why the deprivation
Search and destroy.
could be overriding considerations given the freedom of watch clause.
141. Time to charge on the target and level it.
Also, the BT3, not asking the argument for the fetus having capacities for experiences because, there's a plethora of people that would say that you should accept that the fetus has and then this is some of the notes I had on that. And the notes that I had, BT3 took the affirmative. I guess the brain transplant, I'm clear with the if it's the case, if it's not stipulated when taking the brain out, there is no break in psychology. This is just follow that the person still exists. So if you want the organism that the person is attached to, this would be obviously wrong given the psych view, but the only reason why that didn't get brought up as an issue is because BT3, when he brought up the existence of the psychological profile, he didn't mention anything about the psychology. He didn't mention anything about that. We sort of brought that reduction to sort of succeed because psychology
we lost that round.
So
prepare for the next one.
That's the main issue. And then Wolfgang obviously asking the question about objective definition. I could have, and then BT3 sort of trying to illustrate things like that. Obviously, definition and objective. It's a big 2026 we need to look in.
Search and destroy.
And also talking about the view should be talking about more permissibility, not more
detonate
plays. That was the thing. And also the last thing, I guess, that I wanted to bring up is okay. I was trolling.